So we're ready to go?
After making.
Okay. All right, it's 3 o'clock, so I will call to order the meeting of the Monroe County Capital Improvement Board I want to emphasize December 2024, an explanation for the way our Vice President is dressed. This is not July or June, it's December 2024. So I would ask Mr. Whitlatch to call the roll, please.
John Weikart,
Present.
Doug Bruce,
Definitely here.
Eric Spoonmore,
Here.
Joyce Poling, Adam Teese,
Here.
Jim Silverstein.
Here.
And Jay Bear. Jay, as my understanding, is out and will not be here during the meeting.
That is correct. He's has a work obligation and he's not available today. Before we move on to the other items on the agenda, I would like to recognize Mr. Spoonmore for some comments.
Yes, thank you, President Whitehart. As I'm sure many of my colleagues and folks in the audience are aware, yesterday we suffered a great loss in the community with the passing of Cheryl Munson, a dedicated elected official, public servant, and leader in Monroe County for more than 30 years. I want to extend my condolences to the Munson family as they grieve the loss of Cheryl. And I know that so many of us in Monroe County are grieving alongside Cheryl's loved ones. Cheryl Munson was the epitome of a dedicated and selfless public servant. She served in multiple elected capacities. In addition, she was a great conservationist, stalwart for our local nonprofit agencies, our public schools, the Monroe County History Center, and the Monroe Convention Center, among so many other community organizations. But more importantly, Cheryl was a loving wife to her husband, Pat, and a devoted mom and grandmother, and just an all-around wonderful friend that so many of us had the joy of knowing. I had the great privilege of serving alongside Cheryl on the Monroe County Council for 6 years. She was president of the council when I started, and I learned so many valuable lessons and service while watching Cheryl do the public's work. And I can say from personal experience that public service is not always easy. It's often a thankless job that comes with enormous sacrifices for those who heed the call to serve. But despite the sacrifices and the pressures of the job, Cheryl always made it look easy because her constituents' concerns were her number one priority, and she always worked towards the advancement and betterment of our community. And so I'm especially grateful for the tireless efforts and work that Cheryl put into our convention center expansion project. Cheryl and I shared many conversations together over the years on ways to strategize to get this project finally moving in a positive direction. And I know the work we are doing as a capital improvement board made Cheryl so proud. She would have loved nothing more than to be there with us celebrating the ribbon cutting on this fabulous new convention center. And when that day comes, I know we'll all be thinking about Cheryl and her extraordinary legacy that will endure in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spoonmore. Before we go to approval of the consent agenda, let me recognize some guests that we have with us. Isabel Piedmont Smith, who's president of the council, Sydney Zulik, who's on the city council, Jim Doring, who is the incoming president of Downtown Bloomington, Inc. And Jeff Cockrell is with us, county attorney. And if I missed anybody, I apologize. Item number 2 is approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of November 13th, 2024, claims and a financial report. They've been circulated to you in advance. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion, questions? All those in favor, Mr. Whitlatch?
John Weikart,
Yes?
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Eric Spoonmore.
Yes.
Joyce Poling,
Yes.
Adam Teese,
Yes.
Jim Silverstein.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 3 is the treasurer's report, and Mr. Spoonmore, if you will, why don't we jump ahead a bit and why don't we move the JSL contract extension up? So if you can do your report in that and what's currently item number 5, and we'll take care of both of those at the same time.
Yes, sir. Yeah, not a whole lot in the treasurer's report, so let's just move right into item number 4, which is the commissioning contract award for JSL,
No, it's not that.
or I'm sorry,
Number 5.
yes, number 5. So what we're asking for here today is approval to extend the contract for owners rep professional services. This is not a new contract. We budgeted this annually and it's included in the approval or in the city council's approved budget for 2024 and 2025. And just a little bit of background. The budgeted amount for 2024 was $305,000. For 2025, $320,000. So the total budgeted amount so far is about $625,000 for JS Held's contract. The CIB approved the original contract on April 11th, 2024, and that was for pre-design phase. I think taking us from April through July for about $85,000. Then we extended that contract for the remainder of 2024 on August 14th for $158,900. The proposed JSL contract for 2025 again is $320,000. And we are requesting approval from the CIB to extend this through 2025.
And may I take that as a motion?
Yeah. So I would move approval to extend the JSL contract for 2025.
And is there a second? Mr. Teese has seconded. Any discussion or questions about the motion? All right, Mr. Whitlatch?
John Wycart,
Yes?
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Eric Spoonmore,
Yes.
Joyce Poling,
Yes.
Adam Tease,
Yes.
and Jim Silverstein.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we'll backtrack to item number 4, the commissioning contract award, JSL presentation.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I think last month when we were here, we asked you to go out for an RFP for commissioning services. We have done that. We received those last Thursday. And we have been moving through those. Just as a review for those who may or may not be familiar with this, it's a process where you thoroughly verify building systems, how they're installed and operating according to the design criteria put forth in the documents. There are 4 different levels of commissioning that we requested. While commissioning is advantageous to an owner in many ways, it's also a criteria for complying with LEED, particularly when we're going for as many points as we are with LEED Silver. So there's fundamental commissioning, and that's required for any certification of LEED. There's the enhanced commissioning, which is an additional 3 points, and below commissioning 2 points, and non-charge-based commissioning an additional fees. In consulting with Schmidt, we evaluated that all these points would be necessary in moving forward to trying to obtain LEED. With that, we reviewed the RFPs, the responses to those. We received 6 proposals. You can see the respondents there. Several from Indianapolis, but as far as Chicago and even Golden, Colorado. 2 of the proposals ranged in price from $116,100 $878. 2 of the vendors, unfortunately, with the lowest price were eliminated due to the fact that they excluded scope of what we had asked for. So hence the price is lower. So those were excluded in our consideration at the very end once we had vetted all that out. The original budget for this work is $300,000. So we definitely are falling within the range that had been budgeted for the project. Some considerable latitude. The recommendation, goes to the vendor with the best value, and those that have responded with all the requested scope. I will, say that Reliance out of Indianapolis was the most responsive. Their contract award, would be $157,300. And, not noted in their proposal, but they are certified women-owned business, as a little bonus there. The commissions that they have recently completed are Indiana Farm Bureau Fall Creek Pavilion, Hard Rock Casino, in Gary, Indiana, Purdue University, Harbor Hall, and the IU Collins Living and Learning Center. With that, we would make a recommendation to award the commissioning services to Reliance of Indianapolis. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions from board members of Mary? Not a question for Mary, but Mr. Whitlatch, you've had opportunity to review this as well.
Yes, and I spoke with Mary and we went through it and I agree with the recommendation as well.
But is there, Mr. Spoonwell?
Yeah, just thanks to your team and for all the work and due diligence that you put in. That's, I think, you've had a good recommendation.
So is there a motion that we approve the recommendation to award the commissioning contract to Reliance?
Second.
Okay, moved by member Poling, seconded by member Silverstein. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Whitlatch?
John Wyckoff,
Yes?
Doug Bruce.
Yes.
Eric Spoonmore,
Yes.
Joyce Poling,
Yes.
Adam Tease,
Yes.
Jim Silverstein.
Yes.
Thank you. And I want to take the opportunity before we move on, I should have done it when the presentation was made, to recognize JS Held as we approved this contract extension. Thank them for their service. We appreciate your representation and we're looking forward to next year. Items 6 and 7, design update, project schedule update, Schmidt Associates, and I know you have item 8 as well. Do you want to combine those two items? Will they both be in the same presentation? The design and project schedule update? All right, so Eddie Layton is going to handle that presentation.
You all again, thank you for your time as always. It's always a pleasure to come and join you all and share where we are. So this month, we have another update. We don't have any specific approvals for this group today, so just kind of an update where we are. I've got a few design team members going to speak to things they're working on. And we're happy to take questions, discussions. So we're going to talk about mainly kind of developing the site plan, building plan, and start looking at some interiors concepts and talk about next steps. So as always, we start with project goals for our expansion, which have not changed, and I hope will not change from this point forward. Hopefully, we're still going with the same targets: expanding the space, creating inspiring architecture, showcasing unique amenities of Bloomington, enhancing the connectivity, and achieving sustainability. The commissioning agent we just approved to help with that as part of the technical side of lead certification moving. Let's get lead silver. We're always keeping in mind the things we heard from the public. These are kind of guideposts as we continue to work through the project of trying to incorporate local materials such as limestone, elevating public art, addressing the pedestrian scale of this building, connecting with nature, which really part of the roof garden was proposed and it's continued to be brought forward. Engaging architecture, being contextual with the Bloomington downtown, and then creating an experience that people feel is authentic to Bloomington and something they want to share with all their friends around the world. Whatever platform, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Just photos, too. Where are we in the project schedule? We are in the middle of final design, which again, we'll be back here a couple of times before then, but in February, we'll be asking for final design approval And at that point, we'll start working on construction documents. There will be several phases of construction documents. We'll be having some early release packages that will go out in the spring. We'll be complete with construction documents in July. So you see a bidding period, we go from March through August of 2025. We're starting construction this, hopefully this summer. And it'll be about 2 years total for construction, but the expansion being complete in early 2027. In more detail, just as far as it's small to see, we're working through a very detailed final design schedule. Two big things that are in that schedule right now are in blue sections are our site review processes. We've got both planning commission and board of zoning appeals that we are meeting with in January. And so we've gotten built in our schedule, all of the prerequisite submission dates and meeting dates that are required to hit those dates, to meet the meeting dates. So it doesn't slow down our progress, keeps us on schedule in the overall project, and make sure that we're still working towards finishing final design in February. And hopefully we have all of those hurdles behind us and we'll approve in the site plan. There will be other approvals as we continue to work through the project, building plan review, state design, these things like that. We definitely need to get the site review done earlier. It's why it's on this project. So speaking of site design, I'm going to turn it over to Bill Boegert to share kind of some updates on where we are on the site plan development.
My God.
It's a fun to miss out.
So currently, this is for the site plan that we've developed and presented our filing to the plan commission on Monday. We had further discussion, I guess, earlier Friday, the previous week, last Friday, about the reconfiguration of Third Street. So starting at the top of the site, we're attempting to modify the alignment of the road for lane configuration so we can accommodate a bus drop-off lane on the south side up against our building. And then the other features are the entryways. And lately we've been talking about some limestone bollards that would be at each of the 2 points in the northeast and northwest corners. And then we've got kind of a scoring pattern for the sidewalks that highlight the street trees and of course our south side building here. The next one we can dig a little deeper into things underground. There's a relocation of all the utilities that ran down the center alley. And we're bringing communications, tentatively, communications and Duke Energy rerouting on the east side and on the west side, Center Point Energy with the natural gas line. So that gets everything out of the core of the site, out to the perimeter, and then reconnected to the north on the north side of Third Street. So we highlight incoming water will come off of College Avenue, where CB has a water main and bring it into that west side of the building, down into a mechanical room. So we've got a grease interceptor to treat grease-laden waste from our kitchen cooking activities. And so we've got a flow up here. We've got underground stormwater detention to meet the stormwater requirements of the city of Bloomington to keep the, well, now they've got set release rates, so we have to detain it to release it at the set rates. We've worked out a spot for the transformer with both Duke Energy and our electrical engineer from IMED. And we're thinking about the possibility of a rain garden, which is one of the stormwater treatment features in the southwest corner. Got another one. And then street trees, of course. We've got to have street trees around the block to meet city planning's requirements. And this is one of the variances we're trying to possibly seek would be for smaller street trees along Walnut so we can accommodate the utility limitations. And then looking for more columnar trees along Third Street so that, because we end up with a relatively narrow sidewalk, it's 10 feet wide, but in the middle of that walkway will be street trees. So we're trying to work those details out as well. And I don't know if any more, so I think no, but I can answer any questions if anybody has any.
Just your last point was kind of interesting. the idea of a 10-foot wide sidewalk with a street tree in the middle of it seems counterintuitive in terms of allowing people good access paths for what could be a facility that hosts 2,000 people walking on the sidewalk. But what am I missing here, Bill? This seems a little odd that we would want to propose a street tree in the middle of a 10-foot sidewalk. That leaves maybe 3 feet, 2 feet to walk on. That's fairly wide enough for a person.
Yeah,
So
you're correct.
something's not adding up to me.
Well, we would like to seek a variance for no street trees, if that's even a possibility, to avoid that collision course in a sense.
Is even if the tree branches out 4 feet, which is pretty modest, that leaves 2 feet on each,
Yeah,
or 3 feet on each side to pass.
well, we would look for ones that branch out at a higher elevation, which may be a challenge, but if they're collision, then we can get them proved out so that they're branching out at higher elevation. But you're right, and we may be in a situation we're gonna have to seek a variance. Thank you.
So following on that, so is it because of utilities along there that are causing the trees to, where you're having to locate the trees or down the center as opposed to closer to the curb and leaving a wider aisle against the building? What's, I guess I'm still,
Well, yes, of course, what's driving the street trees along Third Street are our request or need for vision to have a bus stop. So that narrows that width. And we need to provide, we're gonna do this 9 feet for a coach. Then that leaves us with 10 to 11 feet between the face of the building and the curb. Side, that's really to maintain the lanes that are there now and to try to fit all these things in. That's what we're left. Ideally, we have a much wider sidewalk. Street.
So showing some question, Doug, going the other direction, we have the street trees there, that's a requirement to provide trees on every street.
Yeah.
So,
it's like every 25 or 40 feet or something. 30, okay.
one option would get, we are sticking with the variance, for the number of trees, but even at the number of trees there, we not need for whatever to be the number of trees we need. So one path we could take, we feel like this is causing a bunch on the side, including. So I guess it'd be more extreme paths, right? You're saying those street trees, sorry, just to be used in the water. That's like, that was a path.
I guess just to follow up on my comment, I would hope that we can think through that really clearly, cleanly. It's just, again, I'm adding up the dimensions in my head. And you don't walk up against the building, so you've got at least a foot from the building. Something's not adding up here to me in terms of the dimensions and people walking on it regularly of any size and scale. So I hope that that can be worked through, or maybe considerations of a hedge treatment or some other sort of vegetation treatment. Something's not adding up in the description here, so. Seriously.
Well, I guess this presentation would be trying to provide everything we need to meet our wishes. So we can scale back, we can see variances.
Was there ever consideration for the drop off coming on College as opposed to on Third Street?
We talked briefly about it. It would be on, of course, on the west side of College, not in front of our facility. This door is always open. As the other side of the coach. So that means
That was not started for you.
but there's no real drop offs.
So you'll check that box, is what I'm asking.
Yes.
What about Walnut?
Well, then we'd be on the east side of Walnut.
So you check that box. That's, I'm getting you ready to answer questions of why you're doing that there. Sure.
I have another question, and this is just concerning utilities. Seeing that we're, again, I understand we have some underground storage, don't we, or the trees along College, we were doing some things there with some storm water filtering, right?
Yes.
And I know right now the utilities run right down the alley in the middle of the building. We have that in the budget, I assume that we've worked to this point for the utility location, right? I just want to make sure that box is checked because that's an expensive part of, relocating any utility. And of course, the cost is any more borne by the client. So I want to make sure we've accounted for that in our budget before Eric here, Mr. Spoonmore wants to make sure it's in the budget as well, Mr. Treasurer.
Yes, we've talked with each of the utilities. Definitely, we have estimates of all for the work. And they're, working with Jeff Underwood, they're all addressed properly.
So are we at the stage yet where this is being discussed with city planning? Has a planner been assigned to the project? Okay.
From the beginning, even
Okay.
when we were conceptually discussing the project, we met with Jeff Scanlon.
Yep.
And then we've met with him several times.
Okay.
We'd be hitting Monday to file for the planning commission.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
So, David Dreisel, Convergence Design, working with Mitt on the design of the project. This is the first floor plan as it currently exists. It's going to look very similar to the plan you saw a month ago, but, we are continuing to refine and tweak the design as, we go along. One of the tweaks that we made recently, was a small reduction in the overall size of the main exhibit hall flex space. Basically, because as we were looking at the plan, we began to feel like the pre-function area around the outside of that flex space was too narrow and felt like the building was just a little out of balance in terms of circulation space to function space. And by making a small reduction in the size of the exhibit hall, we were able to give some of that space back to the pre-function, which I know sounds a little counterintuitive, but I can tell you that these buildings work a lot better if you have generously sized pre-function space around them and don't force people into very narrow corridors. So I think that was a good move. The other thing that allowed us to do, actually two other things it allowed us to do. One of which was we had, for cost purposes, cut off the service corridor about here and the pre-function space about here. This allowed us to reconnect those things, which functionally will be much better for the operation of the building, for service folks to be able to get out into this east pre-function space without having to go through another space. Because we are still wrestling with a surveying issue concerning the north 7 feet of this parcel here, it allowed us to get out of that and move the building north far enough that regardless of the outcome of that concern, we will still be able to build buildings. So it does a couple of things for us. Also allows us to expand the kitchen to a size that was more amenable to our food service designer, increased storage space, and create a connection across the back of the main space that will allow folks to service the building without having to go through a storage room or some other space. So a lot of good things fell out of that. We're very comfortable with that decision. I hope the CIB is also. But other than that, which was a fairly major move, I think the plans are substantially similar to what you've seen before. And I'm sure from a month ago, this probably looks exactly like what you were seeing a month ago. Second level, very similar to what you've seen before, connecting bridge. We're still fussing with the exact design of the roof terrace and where the plants are and where the people are. But the general idea there is that we will have both some people space and some plant space up there. And then 3 meeting rooms on this level, as well as an overlook into the big hall. And then obviously the bridge connection back to the building that we're in now. So I think, anybody have any questions about where the plan development has gone so
David,
far.
not a question, but while we're still on this slide, let me make a couple of statements that I, hopefully you'll say that is correct. The design, that created more movable space came about from discussions that you were all having with convention center staff.
Yes.
And her group pointed out
Correct.
concerns about that, and that led to some of these adaptations. Secondly, even though the exhibit hall space has been slightly reduced, it doesn't change the fact that you can still, that if we wanted to, we could still host 4 basketball courts, 8 volleyball courts. What it primarily does is perhaps reduce the number of spaces for vendors from about 170 to 150, if I remember hearing correctly.
Yeah, we've been playing with some layouts for, functions in the exhibit hall, and we're now at about 154 10 by 10 booths in the space. So it's a little bit reduced from where it was before, but not much.
Okay, well, that was thank you for confirming. I know what I'm talking about
You do.
sometimes.
Okay. Any other questions on the plan? Yes.
Just in terms of square footage, what is the reduction?
So we were 29,000 square feet and change before. Now we're 27,000 square feet and change.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dave? On those two slides, on those two slides.
Yeah, we got a few more slides.
Yes, yes.
So these are the current state of the elevations. These have not changed much from what you've seen before. But we are continuing to develop the elevation concept. I will say that one thing that has changed a little bit is the introduction of a stone base along the entire length of the facade on really all 3 sides of the main space. So that's a minor detail, but one that is significant to me, and I think will make the Indiana limestone folks happy. This is a sketch of through the pre-function area on the west side of the building. So this is where we have a 2-story space where this is the second floor and this is the first floor. And this is just some notions about how we might begin to develop the interiors of the building. The idea here is to, because these brick piers are going to be seen as a 3-dimensional object, we don't want to change finishes on the inside of the glass curtain wall. So we're just proposing wrapping the brick all the way around those brick piers. Likewise, wrapping the stone all the way around those brick piers. One tiny little detail is the introduction of a granite base on the outside because I don't know if you know this, but limestone doesn't always perform super well when road salt and stuff gets kicked up against it. So the first 12 inches of that base would be granite, but everything else would be limestone. Then we're proposing bringing that limestone base into the space to a certain degree, at least as a base. And then toying with the idea of a sort of a panelized finish on restrooms and things that wrap around the pre-function space with some decorative inserts of rough stone that would kind of alternate with some LED lights. So we think there's potential there for a really neat effect with stone and light, adding a lot of animation and activity to that space. So we'll continue to develop these ideas. There's certainly much more to come on the interiors, but we wanted to give you at least a little sneak preview of where that's headed. And then we have a couple of recently developed renderings of what we're looking at. So this is a night shot of the building, and the blue is suggested that the exterior lighting of the building would be color tunable so that we can make adjustments to it to represent, different themes depending on what kind of event was taking place. But you can see the existing Monroe Center here, our bridge in the new building, and this is, you looking down 3rd Street toward the east. And the next view is looking more down College with the new building, Monroe Center, and the court garden area in the background. And this is a view of one of our pre-function spaces. I think this is the, this is the north side, I think it's the north side, yeah, right, okay. So this would be like the main entrance into the ballroom exhibit hall space on the north side of the building. And then this piece here, which is just rendered in stone right now, is one of those locations in the building we've identified as a potential art location. So I would say, you know, it could be stone, but it's very much in the TBD category of, but we'll see what happens there depending on what we want with from an art standpoint. And I think, yeah, okay, there's one more shot. This is the College Avenue pre-function space with, you can see in this one, the grand stairway going up to the bridge level, which I think would be a really nice way to interconnect those spaces. You can see we also have seating, a small planter next to the entry vestibule, which I think helps to soften the space. So that's kind of where things sit right at the moment. Any questions about where the design currently is?
Do these renderings, do they reflect the expanded pre-function space, or is this?
Yes, they do. They're based on the
So these are
most
volumes
current
that we should be seeing, yeah.
It's not a question, but just a comment. We are not designing a blue building. We're just showing opportunities that may exist for lighting on the exterior of the building that can make it exciting, and depending on what we're hosting, we just simply have those opportunities. So,
Yes.
Thank you.
It's still a brick and stone building.
yes.
It's a materials question, but I continue to notice you're choosing a cool gray materials for window mullions, doors, as opposed to this building that has warmer tones, warms and grays. I guess I would just, we live at IU in a limestone world a lot, and the cool grays tend to not work very well with most of the limestone we're getting. We tend to choose warmer grays, so.
Your point is well taken, and I agree with it completely. Other questions, comments about the status of the design? Eddie?
Thank you, David.
So, and your comment really is a segue into one of our next steps, which, you know, we're going to continue the site submittal and BZA plan vision review, really final design review, where we're starting to look at those finishes, looking at the actual materials, you know, single thing you're seeing in the images are those examples, kind of initial thoughts that need to be refined for sure. So that's kind of our next step over, after Christmas holiday, and if we kind of refine some of those options. So I hope the next time we come here in January, you'll be seeing, we'll have had our recording meetings with the solar group. We'll have basic selections there. We can share some more, more, there's how many finishes, things like that. So, any other question, design questions? The next item on our agenda is the variance, the listing of the variances that we're going to be going after, but I want to pause just to go design issues.
Any questions about what you've seen so far or discussion? Okay, Ed.
So, we talked about this previously. Bill mentioned this when he's referring to the site plan. There are several variances that we do have to apply for this project, where we do not, by the letter of the year, meet those codes. This is something that we knew as any part of this project, given our building technology against the typical building technologies that the UDO is written for in the downtown core zoning, which there we are. So we want to just briefly share with the group what those variances are, what our strategies are to respond to them, and then always welcome to back thoughts. Some of these are very technical, so I apologize in advance for that. The first one has to do with our setback from the property line. Per the letter of the UDO, 70% of our building, of any building facade facing the street needs to be within 5 feet of the property line. In most cases, we are meeting that without an issue. On the east side, so the Walnut Street facade, we are a little over 7 feet away from the property line, and that is directly as a result of trying to fit all of those utilities around the building, give them the proper clearances to the street trees, other things that are out there, and just the amount of space in the sidewalk. So that's one variance we're asking for. The second one has to do with windows. As you guys just saw in the renderings, our building has large windows. It should, that's what the function is. And for our zoning, UDO breaks the windows into first floor and upper story windows. And it's, has ratios for percentage of glass, size, proportion. And so, first floor windows, we meet that requirement, no problem. The second floor windows, which the only area that we have a second floor on a facade is the west College Avenue side. We meet the requirements for the amount of glass, but as the UDO is written more around mixed use, multifamily developments, the language for windows in the second floor, and they ask for you to have a ratio of a taller window to wide. It's 1.5 times the height of the width. Which is, if you recall our elevations, we have more square-ish windows. And so we'll be asking for a variance for the window proportion. Our response to that is that through our window patterning and the way that the millions are spaced and designed, we're trying to reference the UDO, reference the intention of the UDO in the appearance. Even if the strict letter of that, we don't need it. The next one is the building facade articulation. So again, thinking about the typical building typology in the downtown area, kind of a multi-tenant, multi-mixed use building. The requirement is that the building facade along the street be broken up into modules, and that those modules have an articulation to them in the plan, but are not all just a flat facade down the whole block of the street. And so our building being mostly a block large is in opposition to that requirement. But we do have our facade broken up into this rhythm of bays to meet that. And those modules are appropriately sized where we do not meet the UDO will be in the depth between those modules. There's a requirement that each adjacent module will be set back a total of 5% of the facade length. So it's a whole facade length, 5% of that is how far we should stepping forward and backwards between the modules. With the length of our facade, some of those depth requirements will be 13 feet, which you just heard David referring to the concerns we have with our pre-function depth as it is. That 13 feet would more or less take up the entire pre-function space if we have it. So while we do have our facade broken up in those modules, and we do have some depth in there, the book piers and glass do have some module articulation in it. It just does not meet the requirement of the UDO for the letter, so we want the variance to be asking for there. Driveway pavement width, this is to do with the exit out of the loading dock in the back of the building. Currently by the UDO, the maximum curb cut is 34 feet there. We are at 43 feet, I believe. And that is to allow the larger trucks to get in and out without driving over the curb. We're asking for a variance there. If the city says, no, you can't do that, it has to be 34-foot maximum. There are technical solutions to make that happen. Trucks drive on codes all the time. But it just would not be preferred if we can avoid that design around it. So, we talked a lot about street trees already, so that's the last one I've listed so far. And that really is because fully, as you might recall from the landscape plan, the north and east side, north and east sides of the building are utilizing smaller trees, and the UDO requires twice as many number of trees if you use the small and medium trees versus large trees. So because of that requirement, we don't want to be, and again, the conversation about the north side, we want to reduce it further. That's the variance we need to guess. Any questions on your?
I mean, not to beat the tree thing to death, but didn't somebody say it would be best not to have trees on the north side of the building?
I think if you ask me my pure opinion, yes, that would be a better experience from I guess. I think it's just we're trying to meet what the requires.
Right.
We can tailor our variances to whatever we feel is appropriate. I guess the risk there, the more you ask for, the more likely they might deny it. It's interesting.
That seems like a pretty critical one, though, to at least ask for, given conversation we've had today, and I would.
You can always come back to this.
Yes, so a beginning negotiating point is perhaps no trees and the fallback position is smaller, but I would hope, given the concerns raised, that we would at least be considering asking for a variance for the reasons that have been cited, related to the trees. You know, and what are the other options? Right. Mr. Teese mentioned other plantings, other shrubbery. Anyway, I hope the starting point is let's start there and fall back to all the trees.
Can you just kind of explain what the variance process is from application to getting the approval?
Sure, so there, we are submitting to the board of zoning appeals, and there's a, similar to plan commission, there's a series of, deadlines before that. I believe, the end of December is our current deadline for the county, and we, present at the meeting in January, which I think is the week after plan commission, so I'll those two kind of back to back. Hopefully they'll move it, they're, they present our case, they decide to approve it, or if that, other conditions. The hope is we submit in December, we're having pre-submit meetings, we've already talked to the staff and the sense of what our likelihood of it was, and so there's some options.
So we'll know what the staff recommendation is going into the.
I would add that the UDO, I mean, I don't really think it's, well, certainly not written for a building of this scale. I mean, this is pretty much a one-off building. This isn't something you're building on every block. And so, you know, a lot of these are things that are very particular to this building, that almost require this, a module. I mean, you know, like you said, that the articulation is a certain percentage of width to be your depth. And again, on a smaller building, that's pretty achievable, but on something of this scale and size, I think that, you know, the UDO, certainly should have some compromise. But I think, you guys have addressed those, then at least the renderings that I've seen in the plan pretty adequately, so. That will.
Our hope with all this, that we're not just saying, no, we're not gonna meet. We're showing alternate ways that we're meeting the intent of what we feel is what they're trying to get, we're just applying to our going to. So I think it's not, there's not convention centers all around the police. It makes sense that it didn't all fit.
And having spent just a short period of time in city government, I don't think the plan commission's attitude is we only grant 80% of the variances you ask for. It's what are the merits of each one you're requesting. So I would hope we will take that approach. I think you'll find a standard of reasonableness, and I would encourage you to take that approach. Any other questions about the variances?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And for board members, we just moved through item number 8, which was the status update on permitting and variances. So we've covered that as well in the presentation by Schmidt Associates. So item number 9 is property transfer status update. Mr. Whitlock.
Thank you. We have, basically, we have no property right now. We've asked for property to be transferred to us. And we asked both the city and the county. The county, I believe, is prepared to transfer real estate to us once the bond is paid off. And for the convention center, which is going to happen here shortly. And so I've been in discussions with Jeff Cockrell, the county attorney. Jeff is here, and I'll feel free to have him weigh in at any time on what I'm saying and what the plan is. But my understanding from Jeff is that once the properties are paid off, or the bond is paid off, that they're prepared to transfer the real estate to us. The parts that are owned by the county that would be transferred are the parts in black. So this is to the west of us. This is the current convention center, and this is to the east of us, all owned by the county. That will all be transferred, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, to the county commissioners. Some of it currently is owned by the Convention Center, Building Corp, and otherwise. All will be transferred to the county commissioners by quitclaim deed. And then upon our request, which we have made, but I think we will make official today, that we will ask that those properties then be quitclaim deed to the CIB, all to happen within the next 30 days or 45 days, something like that. Do you think, Jeff?
Well, I think the debt is scheduled to be paid off thanks to the Convention Visitors Commission, January.
Okay.
So I mean, my hope would be that we'd have all the transaction done in January. At worst, early February, I'm having the auditor's office put together the legal descriptions for each of those parcels. They look like they're 3 blocks, but there's probably 20 parcels.
Right, there are.
And so when we sent the letter to you after this group requested, hey, what is the county's intention? We said there were 2 real issues that we had to deal with for those kind of northern properties. Because we sat through all the meetings, we're like, yeah, everybody understands that those are absolutely unnecessary for this. One was that we get through the 2024 general election, which we're through. And the other one was that we resolved the debt, which thanks to the Convention Visitors Commission and the county council will occur by basically at the end of the year. So in January, we would be able to, start or begin and do the transaction. It's a transfer of the properties and you guys see what we need.
So those in black are the ones we'll be requesting and will be presumably will be able to be transferred to us. This in blue or purple, whatever you want to call it down here, are also owned by the county. We have not specifically asked for that. The question is sometime if we wanted to, Jeff and I have talked and we can make that request and the county commissioners can decide how they want to handle that. It's my understanding, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, that these are currently owned by the Convention Center, but they're going to be transferred to the commissioners as well.
Correct. Once the debt's resolved.
Once the debt's resolved. Yeah. The area in red here is what's owned by the city. And we have had, obviously, we've had discussions with the city about those transfers and those properties in red. The city said that they were willing to work with us on the transfer of those parcels. We have not specifically talked to them and they are, and so that'll be the next step for us. This in yellow here is what's owned by the Courtyard Group. So that's what that property is there. So we will be working on the transfer with the county. We'll be contacting we'll be further following up with the city about the transfer of that. And then after we own that real estate, then there will be the issue with the bonding process with the city, where some of that real estate will need to, and that'll be something where we'll be in discussions with bond counsel and with the finance people about what part needs to be transferred to secure the bond or as part of the bond process for the building of the convention center. So at some point, we're going to come back and some of that will need to go to the city as part of the bonding and pursuant to the interlocal and the other agreements we have. After the retirement of that bond, it comes back to the CIB, but that's down the road where that will occur. Yeah, Eric.
And when you say city, that refers to the new city building corporation that was
Correct.
established. Okay.
Correct. So, so that's the process on that. The action item, I guess I would want today would be a motion to officially request or renew our request to the county that the areas in black be transferred to us once the bond is paid off and after it's been transferred to the commissioners, to have the commissioners transfer that portion to us at this time, and that we would be willing to accept and take that. And then we'll be prepared to move on further with the city after that. But the motion would be to request the transfer of the area to the west, current convention center, and the area to the west that is currently owned by the county.
You said west twice.
East, I meant. Sorry.
So,
You know what I meant.
yeah, I did. So the three blocked areas described there, west, north, and east, that we request, the county transfer those properties, to the CIB, once the, debt on those properties is retired. So, so that we can have discussion, is there a motion?
Yes.
Moved by, member Poling, is there a second? Second by member Spoonmore. All right, so, is there discussion of that request? Mr. Teets?
Very supportive. I just during construction period, we're gonna have to definitely think about staging and parking, and I think this western parcel is gonna play a big role in that. I just would ask that all of our teams, our owners, reps, our architects be thinking through staging, and that'll be a very critical part. You can't build in thin air, so we should be really thinking through that. Plus, we're gonna try and keep this building operational, so really be thinking through that in real time. It's going to be really important.
Thank you. I would mention that the area that, whether it's blue or purple, that's shaded below the red, what that means to our friends who have asked us about their ongoing leases is that we still don't have, those are still not our leases. So, my sister's closet, the other properties down there, their relationship will still be, with the county and not with the CID. So we are also not absorbing those properties or having responsibility for them. Any other questions or discussion? So we have a motion and a second. Mr. Whitlatch?
John Wyckoff,
Yes?
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Eric Spoonmore,
Yes.
Joyce Poling,
Yes.
Adam Tees,
Yes.
John Silverstein.
Jim.
Jim. Jim Silverstein.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And of course, all of this becomes important because, once the bond is retired on this building, that sets up the dominoes that can fall moving towards the bonding process. I don't know if there's anything new to report on a schedule for the bonding other than what we heard last month, which is that it's anticipated that in January or early February, the city council would be dealing, or we would be presenting to the city council request on the bonding. So I don't know if there's other information that we have other
I
than
don't
that.
mean to put our city controller on the spot, but do you have any update on the scheduling?
Everybody's Jessica McClellan, city controller. I just took a look at the schedule today before this meeting, and we've adjusted everything to that. We're planning to meet with city council twice, once in January and once in February. So 2 city council meetings, and we can get on the schedule. So we're gonna work on right away to get those in. We'll work with Jim, we'll work with you. Make sure.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you,
much.
Jessica. All right, item number 10, process for building naming, and my name's beside that. The interlocal agreement charges the, pardon me? The interlocal agreement charges the CIB with the naming of the new building. Selling the naming rights to the new building requires the prior approval of the mayor and the county commissioners. Selling the naming rights to the building currently does not have support that we would move forward in that direction, but we still need to move forward in the direction of the naming of the new building. And the first part of that process is simply that, creating a process for how we move forward. And I've asked Jay Bear as a mayoral appointee and Joyce Poling as a commissioner's appointee and Jim Silverstein as ours, if they would be willing to accept responsibility to serve as a committee to develop the process moving forward for how we want to move forward towards naming the building. Not coming back with a recommendation for the name, but a recommendation for the process of how we move forward. And so, that may include, but this is entirely up to them, who would be invited to be involved in that process of naming the new building, how we get input and generate enthusiasm for that naming process, and what guidelines we need for consideration. So, for instance, the name reflecting the cultural, artistic, historical, or geographic or other unique qualities of Bloomington and Monroe County. And then finally, how will that name recommendation be reached by that Part 2 committee and brought to us as a recommendation? So Jay and Jim and Joyce have all agreed to serve on a committee to develop the process. Anyway, unless this is your last chance to change your mind, Jay's not here, so he's not gonna change his. And hopefully, I realize it's a shortened time period and maybe developing the process won't take all that long. So if we had some information back in January, then we can move forward. I think it's important for us to show that movement. First of all, because we've got the Visitors Bureau that's going to be dealing with a branding campaign. And certainly it's important to them to know the name of the facility. And secondly, seems to me to be great when we have groundbreaking and we've got one of those signs that says coming soon that's got the name of the building on it. So if we can encourage them to move forward with all speed in that process development and report that recommendation back to us, we'll name a Part 2 committee to implement that plan and we'll see where we end up. So thank you for agreeing. And that's my report on the process for the building naming. Item 11, any questions from board members about that?
I have one. Are we looking at naming the new facility or the whole? Because this is called the Monroe Convention Center right now. You're renaming this building also. We haven't had a meeting yet, so.
Correct. Well, I'm just going to throw this out. What we're creating is an expansion of this building, and we're expanding to create whatever our new convention center is. So I think that needs to be, I think the name of this expanded convention center, this building and the new building are all what you're charged with, how we move forward with that process. Any other questions?
I would just throw out an idea, not a question, to the committee is that, one of the ideas, and I just think back when they did Bryan Park, that was a contest to name Bryan Park. And I think the winner was somebody that named it after president of the university, William Bryan LeBeau. I think that's how that name came about. So again, just a thought as this committee looks at this whatever process is a contest of residents, one way to come up with a name. And I'm just throwing that out as an idea.
Sounds like you have a fourth member.
No.
Yeah, and I think we've asked them, I have asked them in terms of how we generate enthusiasm. Is there a naming contest? And I'm sure we'll get some interesting responses to that. You can not be concerned about the John Weichart Convention Center because there'll be enough Johns in the building that I don't need any other recognition other than that. All right, item 11, schedule for 2025 board meetings. I've circulated that to you. What I've asked is for your consideration that we move our meetings from the second Tuesday of each month to the third Wednesday. This from the second Wednesday of each month to the third Wednesday of each month in order to assist some work scheduling issues for some of our CIB members. So we would move to the third Wednesday of each month in 2025, with the exception of the month of March, when we would meet on the fourth Wednesday of March, because the third Wednesday of March falls during IU spring break. And we all know the earth does not spin on its axis while IU is on spring break. So in March, we would simply move to the fourth Wednesday. And I circulated that schedule among you. I don't know that we need a motion to approve it, but if that's all fine with everybody, we will begin in 2025 to meet on the third Wednesday of each month. January 15th, which will be our next meeting, as a reorganization meeting, which falls on the third Wednesday of January. All right, item number 12, old business. Is there any old business to be brought before the board? Any new business to be brought before the board? Comment from board members? Any comments from board members? Hearing and seeing none. Comments from the public. An opportunity for the public. Anyone in the public who would like to address us, and you have 2 minutes at the podium, which Isabel's walking in the wrong direction, but you can stand right where you are. That's okay. That's all right. Isabel, right? That's great. Right where you are is wonderful.
Hi, Isabel Smith, Wilmington City Council President. I just want to speak a little bit to the variances that are proposed and of course, the letter from the council to this body and to, spoke about getting all those approvals before coming, to us with the bond ordinance and, trying to keep variances to a minimum, and really, not undermining, the city's long-term plans with, various requests. And the one that really stands out to me is the one about the trees on the north and east side, right of way, next to the building. I agree with Mr. Teason, I can't picture a 10-foot wide right of way with trees in it of any size. So I don't know, that the BZA will look kindly on like, oh, well, we made all of our plans and then we realized we have this problem. Like, why was the building not set back further from the street to begin with in order to avoid this problem? Having, street trees and trying to accommodate, people using the sidewalks and such. So, I don't know what the answer to that is, why it was not considered earlier, but certainly street trees are an important part of our climate action plan. It's required, so that's the one that stood out to me that I'm concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other comment from the public? All right, seeing none. Our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 15th, 2025 at 3 p.m. That'll be our reorganization meeting and we will have that here. Before adjournment, let me thank Marquis again for the technical support they continue to provide for our meetings. It's been extremely helpful and they're donating that for us and we much appreciate it. So with that, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We are adjourned.